RVJ Agribusiness Academy.
Right. Hi, I'm David Hughes and I talk around the world about global food industry trends. I'm going to talk a little bit about health and well-being and the impact that that has on the food industry. So, what about some trends in the food industry? Well, in part it's about value, but it's not just value as in low price. Often we want good value, that means we want low price. It's also about values. Increasingly consumers are interested in elements relating to what are the attributes of the food product apart from its taste, apart from its price level. How is it produced? Who produced it? Tell me more, I want to know the story. And so, yes, it's a great price, but it's also about ethics, sustainability, provenance, the heritage. That's increasingly important. And I see that it's not just a UK thing, this is right around the world, you can see that reflected. Let's look at customer insights from Canada, for example. Again, matters like local sourcing, that we're in a global industry, sure, and many of the ingredients for the food industry are sourced on a global basis, but increasingly people want to know about, can you use the local product? It might be safer, healthier, fresher, whatever it may be. And so it's about local sourcing, healthier choices, and waste reduction. Actually, that's increasingly in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years that's become important, as we recognise that in a world where we're going to add 2 billion people over the next 30 years or whatever it may be, that we've got to produce more from less, and then we sit back and think, for goodness sake, we waste 35-40% of the food that we produce. In developed countries, often we just throw it away because we never get round to eating it, because it goes off, because we leave it in the fridge. And then in emerging countries, perhaps where the infrastructure isn't the best, it might be spoilage wasted from the farm through to the point where it might be sold. And there's strong interest in this reducing wastage. I think that flips over also into packaging, where in some countries there's particular consumer resistance to over-packaging. Actually, intriguingly enough, in the UK, where we do use packaging, particularly for fresh food, to a great extent, that is not liked in many other countries. In Australia, there's a real resistance against that. When I'm talking about it, my view on it is that increasingly that will become less of an issue as the packaging becomes more compostable. So where we can recycle the packaging. So it's these social issues which are so important. And what intrigues me about the food industry is that there are increasingly special interest groups, non-government organizations, specialists, pundits, who would like to see the world change its diet, and not least the world in developed countries. So it's this sort of focus on eating better for a fair, green, healthy future. So here we've got Eating Better, which is a UK non-government organisation, if you will. It's a broad alliance to demonstrate shifting diets to more plant-based eating with less and better meat. And what intrigued me when I was listening to a presentation is the extent to which there are organisations involved here. I mean, wow, there are some heavy hitters here in terms of NGOs, non-government organisations. And it's a reminder that in the food industry, where, as I will talk later, where big food is under attack, where in the food industry in general, we're often not well organised to respond to these these groups, which have a very specific agenda and very specific interests. And it tends to be, it's a bit threatening for meat people here, because that's their target, is let's reduce meat consumption and let's keep protein more as plant protein. But look at that, just go through, there are some big players. Whenever you see the panda, there's a big hitter. The Soil Association, which represents the organic community in the UK. These are important organisations. Oxfam, they have big constituencies. And I think it would be well for the food industry to recognise that they have to communicate with these guys, or else they will always be on the defensive. And the interesting thing about diet is that governments the world over too are interested in influencing what we eat. Now, whether we take any notice at all of what government asks us to do when it comes to diet is another matter. But it's intriguing if we take the Eat Well plate, the Eat Well guide in the UK, put out by the Department of Health, that you can see increasingly that the proportion of our plate that is represented by plants is growing. The proportion by meat is getting smaller. The pulses have come into the equation. And so over time, the governmental view on what we should eat is changing. And whilst I don't think it has great impact in the short term, I think it probably does in the longer term. Again, back to those special non-government organisations that have that zealotic zeal. They want to change the way the world eats. They will often end up using food pyramids in a sort of interesting way. They say, okay, here's the food pyramid as we know it on the left, but actually there's an environmental pyramid which reflects the upside down nature. So here we are with the food pyramid that at the bottom with the fruit and vegetables in it, which have the lowest environmental impact, at the top meat which has the highest environmental impact.